Where's the Welsh government's focus, it seems? Wondering why so many head teachers in the country are white. Again, according to the last census, at least in this instance, 93.8% of the Welsh population are white, so it would make sense that most of the head teachers are white. But obviously these people wanting a demographic that will be more electorally reliable, should we say, don't care about that, and having to go to war against this whiteness construct in this Marxist, oppressor-oppressed, class warfare system. They're now asking silly questions, very, very silly questions, very, very silly questions. Silly questions all these people seem to know, really. I'm one of these people that often says there's no such thing as a silly question, but again, you have to wonder sometimes that why are a majority of head teachers white in a majority white country? Riddle me that, Watson. Riddle me that. But this is no surprise to you, ladies and gentlemen. Jane Dodds of the Senedd asking that question, despite the fact we all know why. It's because the people of Wales, and the genetic history they hail from, and the Celtic people, are white people.
We know that the majority of the people who have leadership roles in the area of education or who are head teachers are white. Why is that happening? Over decades, things have happened over the decades, training has happened and so forth, and why are we still in this situation?
I think it comes back to experiences within school. So the experiences of Black pupils within school has been a negative experience. They haven't seen any representation across the teaching workforce. That being said, there are snippets and there are some teachers which are Black. But again, what are their experiences like of racist incidents? Are they being treated with respect, with professionalism in school? And do they feel like they're being treated, those incidents are being treated well?
I'd argue, controversially, maybe not so controversially, I don't know, normal until about a couple of years ago, in a country where, again, still 94% of it is white, that it's actually pretty good representation. If the majority of head teachers are white and the majority of the population is white, isn't that representation? And no, of course, it's always favourable representation or equitable representation, we should say. Which is what these people are after, these race Marxists and whatever else are after. It's not the matter of are these people simply the best people for the job, or these head teachers actually doing a good job? And if you look at the state of schools nowadays, in many ways, maybe you'd come to the conclusion that they actually weren't. But do you fix that by basically race-based quotas? No. No, of course you don't. You fix those by, rigorous interview process and finding the best person for the job based on their principles and values and what they hold dear. In fact, in many ways, it's this focus on representation, if you will, that's actively made it so that you exclude the best candidates in order to have candidates based on some other factor that they have no control over and has no bearing on their job performance. In many ways, when you give these people these roles simply because of that and not because they actually earned it or they were actually the best fit for the job, they don't tend to respect it. They don't tend to respect it, and as a result, then the cycle just continues and it gets worse and worse and worse because, again, everything in a school is going to come down from the head teacher. The values, the work ethic, the work rate, the environment, everything's going to come from them. If you have a ungrateful, resentful individual that's just been given it because of some nebulous representation quota, you're not going to get the best out of the teachers, you're not going to get the best out of the students. And then they wonder why this, again, the school system in many areas of this country is just absolute crap. And obviously you have all the other initiatives then of, the socialist indoctrination, the deliberate mistelling of history, right? You go look back to when we was in school and we studied a little bit of history. There was a reason, again, we didn't study any of Mao's China. So much was on the Nazis, right? A ridiculous amount was on the Nazis. A ridiculous amount was on American history and shaming all the right-wingers and saying that Lyndon B. Johnson was great. The Russian history, in comprehensive school, this is in particular, stopped right after, and I've told this story many, many times, the Russian history stopped right after the 1917 revolution. They did not cover anything that happened in the Soviet Union. You know, from the 1917 revolution where Lenin took power onwards. Nothing covered Cambodia or anything like that. But no, because it's all, again, with a particular agenda in mind. Because they didn't want people understanding that the system being brought in was very, very similar in a lot of ways to those systems in terms of political initiatives. We haven't necessarily moved straight on to the killing fields yet of like S-22 in Cambodia or anything like that, or that Mao hanging, you know, shame placards around the necks as they literally kill their teachers, right? We haven't moved on to that stage of the Cultural Revolution yet, but this one has been much more insidious. It's been much more insidious. It's been creeping through. It's a stealthy infection, if you will. It's only going to make itself manifest when really we only think that it's going to be too late. Because it's been enabled. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.